Forget the documentaries that treat Soviet aircrew survival like pure grit and luck. On the Eastern Front, the real story is paperwork and improvisation. Gear existed that rarely showed up in neat inventories. Water landings in the Baltic. A knife nobody wanted to sign for. A compass that admitted you might need to run. These weren't secret weapons. They were small, quiet acknowledgements that plans break. And when a fighter goes down, doctrine doesn't walk you home. These are the 7 hidden Red Air Force escape kits from the Eastern Front. Number 7. Inflatable life vests. Essential near the Baltic, awkward everywhere else. Officially, most VVS aircrew equipment priorities were built around land operations. Parachute, sidearm, basic first aid, and whatever the unit could standardize. Ditching gear was not a universal expectation on the Eastern Front, and it often sat outside routine issue patterns. But the Baltic didn't care about doctrine. In the Leningrad and Gulf of Finland sector where the VVS and the Baltic Fleet Air Arm operated alongside each other, water was always under the flight path. Crews flying IL-2s and fighters from coastal strips sometimes carried inflatable life vests. The kind you could strap on over a harness and forget until you didn't have that luxury. The quiet part is procurement. Some of these vests appear inconsistently in unit paperwork, suggesting local supply solutions, naval channels, or found stock rather than clean, centralized issue. When it worked, it bought time, especially in cold water where minutes mattered. When it failed brutally. Punctures from wreckage, inflation valves fouled by grit, or men trapped by straps while trying to get out of a sinking cockpit. Number 6. Concealed knives. A survival tool that could look like misconduct. Red Air Force regulations emphasized discipline, accountability, and controlled weapons. A pilot had a pistol. That was the neat, reportable answer. Extra blades weren't a line item commanders wanted to explain, especially during 1942-1943 when loss rates were high and rear area inspections were constant. Downed aircrew lived in a different reality. Behind German lines, you needed a tool that didn't jam, didn't run dry, and could cut cloth, wire, or a parachute harness in a hurry. So some pilots carried concealed knives, small fixed blades or sturdy folders tucked into flight boots, sewn into lining, or taped under a mapboard. It wasn't about dueling. It was about getting out of a tree without breaking an ankle, cutting a flare cord, or threatening a dog long enough to move. Used right, a knife was quiet insurance during an escape to partisan-held woods. Used wrong, it could backfire, searches at checkpoints, questions from SMERSH on return, or a blade that escalated a capture into a beating. If you were flying in 1943, would you risk carrying it anyway? Number 5. Escape maps and compasses. Tools that admitted you might get lost and have to think. Officially, Soviet aircrew training leaned hard on route discipline and ground control. The message was simple. Fly the plan, follow vectors, don't improvise. A personal compass and an escape map quietly suggested something else: that control might vanish, and you'd be on foot. In practice, some units issued or locally produced cloth or thin paper maps, plus small compasses that could be hidden in a pocket. The 2nd Guards Mixed Aviation Division in Belarus in 1944 is a documented example where navigation aids mattered after forced landings and bailouts. Crews used them to steer toward friendly lines or partisan contacts instead of wandering into garrisons and roadblocks. The details weren't glamorous. Moving at dusk, avoiding rivers with bridges, using rail lines as handrails, and constantly recalculating because German-held villages weren't frontline, they were everywhere. When it worked, a compass turned panic into a direction and shortened the time exposed. When it failed quietly: outdated maps, magnetic deviation near wreckage, or a man so exhausted he walked the wrong bearing for hours and straight into a sweep. Number 4. Signal flares and die markers. A rescue call that could also betray you. The official expectation was that rescue was organized. Ground units recovered their own, and airmen avoided drawing attention. Signaling devices existed, but admitting you needed them meant admitting you might be alone, downed, and waiting. Yet some survival kits included flare pistols, pen flares, or die markers, especially where friendly aircraft could search and where rivers and marshes made pickup possible. In 1943, elements of the 3rd Air Army operating in the Belarus sector recorded die used to mark location for air-assisted rescue. The logic was coldly practical. A small plume in a pond or bend of river could be seen from altitude far better than a waving arm, and a flare could punch through forest canopy gaps. The trade-off was risk. A flare could pull in a friendly PO-2 or it could pull in a German patrol. Die could help a searching IL-4 crew spot you, or it could mark you like a pointer on a map. Successful use meant timing and concealment. Bad use meant contact on the enemy's terms. Before we move on, if you ditched in the Baltic or went down in Belarus, which would you gamble on first? A compass, a knife, or a flare? Tell us below. And subscribe if you want the non-myth version. The top 3 get even more personal. Number 3. Cold weather balaclavas and gloves. Warmth that ruined your hands when you needed them most. Uniform standards assumed you'd dress for the airfield and the cockpit, not for 3 nights in a tree line. Cold weather gear existed, issued seasonally, signed for, sometimes tied to theater needs, but it wasn't always treated as escape equipment. It was comfort, until it wasn't. On the Eastern Front, crews learned fast that frostbite is a tactical problem. A downed pilot with numb fingers can't work a pistol, undo a parachute harness, strike a match, or read a compass without dropping it. So men improvised. Balaclavas, wool caps, scarf wrapping, mittens with trigger slits, even extra socks pulled over hands. Mechanics quietly helped. Leather gloves got lined. Seams got reinforced with thread scavenged from parachute rigging. If you flew in winter, you built a private system for staying functional. When it worked, it turned "survived the landing" into "move tonight," especially in the 1941-42 deep freezes. When it failed, it was slow and humiliating. Soaked gloves that froze solid, bulky mitts that snagged on cockpit controls, or a balaclava that fogged goggles during a low approach and bought you a crash. Number 2. Emergency rations and water kits. Calories that made you slow, and thirst that made you visible. The official logic was straightforward. A short survival window, rapid recovery by friendly forces, and minimal carried weight. Rations weren't supposed to turn a pilot into an infantryman. Standard loads emphasized the mission-first ammo, fuel, maps, signals, while food and water often fell into, if available, territory. Reality was longer. Downed aircrew could spend days moving toward lines or partisans, and hunger makes decisions stupid. So kits appeared. Hard biscuits, concentrated sugar, chocolate, sometimes canned meat when weight allowed. Water was harder. Canteens weren't always practical in a cramped cockpit, so men carried small flasks or relied on purification tablets when they could get them. In swampy regions, that mattered. In winter, snow looked like water until it drained heat out of you. When it worked, a few hundred grams of food bought patience waiting out patrols, moving at night, refusing the easy road. When it failed by physics. Extra weight that complicated a bailout, wrappers that crinkled at the wrong time, or thirst that forced a man into a village well with German eyes already on it. Number 1. First aid and morphine kits. Relief that kept you moving and relief that killed judgment. Official first aid was meant to stabilize, not to enable heroics. Aircrew kits prioritized basics. Bandages, antiseptic, sulfa powders when available, and simple splints. Controlled drugs, morphine syrettes or ampules, sat inside stricter rules, logged and accounted for, because pain relief is also a command problem. But after a hard landing, doctrine becomes anatomy. Broken ribs, burns, shrapnel, torn ankles from bad parachute drops. A pilot who can't stop bleeding can't evade. So crews assembled practical kits. Compresses tucked into flight suits, tourniquet material cut from webbing, iodine in small bottles, and whatever analgesic could be acquired. Sometimes that included morphine, officially issued or unofficially, borrowed from medical stores. It wasn't romance. It was the cold arithmetic of mobility. When it worked, first aid kept a man conscious long enough to reach a partisan hut or cross a line at dusk. When it failed, it was the other edge. Morphine that dulled urgency, a bandage that hid infection, or a tourniquet left too long because shaking hands lost track of time. None of this gear was magical. It was small, human-scale engineering aimed at one problem: what happens after the plan collapses. Regulations tried to keep aircrew predictable, accountable, and easy to supply. Survival demanded the opposite: private choices, quiet modifications, and risks made without witnesses. If you want World War II history without simplification or mythology, subscribe. We'll keep following the details people usually skip because the details are where the real war lives.